Welcome back. We are the Ones, a Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live discussion podcast. And we will be discussing episode 6, the final episode of The Ones Who Live. We're not going to talk about the series overall. We're going to have like a post-mortem episode next week where we just talk about everything. So for now, this episode is just about episode 6. So you ladies ready?
Yep.
First thoughts overall of the episode. What did you think about it, Imani?
I thought that it ended really well in terms of giving me exactly what I wanted. I think that the rest of it, I just wish I don't have a fundamental problem with what happened. I just wish that we had more episodes for it to happen in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, I think we'll discuss more about that next week. As for this episode, I love the reunion. I mean, I know that's what we all kind of hope would happen at the end, and we got that. So, I mean, I'm basically happy. It felt like the beginning with everything with Beale, they were kind of opening up the story a bit more, and I was excited for that possibility of the future. And then they just kind of yada 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 past all of that setup. And they didn't wrap up. They didn't wrap up CRM the way I had hoped. And people can brush this off as the Michonne story. I completely get that. And like I said, I'm very glad that we got that part resolved. But they really set us up. They in episode 1, even the beginning of this episode, they were giving us something really, really interesting and epic with the CRM. And I think it just kind of fizzled out in that regard alone. But the series did what I wanted it to do, and the ending was so beautiful. So I am happy. One thing I've learned over the years, if Rick and Michonne are on my screen, I'm probably going to be happy. So
yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think over the course of especially this show, but the flagship as well, when those two are together, is usually something really great is happening on screen that you could be happy about. But I concur. The ending was great. I loved it. They're back with the babies. Y'all know that's all I wanted. I don't care what else happens. I'm good. But yeah, and I mean, I agree with you guys too about the CRM story, and we'll get into that a little bit more as this episode goes on, and then probably a lot more next week when we have our series postmortem. But this episode 6, opens with Rick and Michonne once again. They're together, they're having sex, they're having this romantic time. They always seem to find candles. Nice. But anyway, the mood was there. It was wonderful. And as they're spending this time together, you have voiceovers. Rick is talking, Michonne, Okafor, Beale, Thorne, Nat, Jadis, and they're talking. It's kind of telling us what's happened the previous 5 episodes, and it's just giving you this feel for what is pending, right? So once they get to Cascadia Base, Rick shows up. He's got his hands up. He's letting them know that he survived. He goes through he debriefs, tells them everything that happens. And once he comes out, Thorne is there and she wants to know what happened. He tells her that Bethune saved his life when they had problems with the helicopter. And he says, like, I'm glad you brought her in, and we can continue this in Okafor's mission. And it was very interesting that Thorne was like, well, you and I survived. It was like Okafor, maybe, I don't know, his mind wasn't right, or he wasn't, completely aware of what was going on. Therefore, that's why he didn't make it. And she says, but the two of us, we made it for a reason. We, I thought that, giving up was a sign of weakness. Now I see that it was a strength because, you sacrifice what you want basically for something that's larger than yourself. And Ashley, this whole conversation that Thorne and Rick have at the very beginning. What did you get out of it? What were your thoughts about Thorne specifically and what she was saying?
My number one thought, and this ran throughout the whole episode, but it started here, was what did Okafor ever see in her? Why did he think she was an A? I have seen zero evidence of it. Like you said about how soldiers are basically meant to take orders. That makes total sense. And she is a very good B, but I don't see A anywhere on her. I think Rick and Michonne might be the only A's in this show, and maybe Nat. But I was just like, I don't get it. Like I'm starting to think that she accidentally missed it. Like it was not like when she shot Okafor, it was completely an accident, because I just don't get anything about her. Whatever she saw in that briefing, she did not have an A reaction. She had a B reaction and fell in line. And I am very disappointed at the way that she kind of turned out to just be a CRM soldier and not a whole lot more.
Yeah, I mean, she told Rick, like, basically let go of Okafor's bullshit. Like,
Right.
and she seemed to be like all in. Amanda, you have any thoughts about Thorne and Rick, that conversation?
Just that I had hoped that she would, particularly once I heard what the plan was, I had hoped, I was kind of like, you were on board with this, like, but I kind of thought that with Jadis too, despite the fact that she's like terrible. Because I was just like, this plan is horrendous. But yeah, and the fact that she became even more I mean, I guess I can see it. I can see it, like if they're like consolidation of resources and everything, like, only the strongest, because it is sort of Darwinian what she was saying even. So if her idea is like only the strongest survive and we're the strongest and we continue to like bolster our strength and like basically knock off everybody else so that we have all the resources and everything. So even as I'm saying that, it was disappointing and I didn't understand it, I don't agree at all. Don't mistake me, but I sort of see why she might have thought like, oh, this is a brilliant plan, I'm all in. It was dumb, but
Yeah.
but
It just
I
shows
was
no
disappointed.
evidence of thinking for yourself, which is supposed to be like the hallmark of an A. And she's just like, I'm
Sure.
doing exactly what they're telling me.
Right.
Well, I guess it just made sense to her. Like, I guess once, so, and I mean, I guess it's easier to do that when the family that you, your family that would die is much further away. So, who knows what'll happen with them, even though they said that they have people elsewhere, like who knows what would happen with them. So it's much easier when you don't have any skin in the game to be like, yeah, sure, we'll kill off all these people and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. So while Rick was doing this, just as a side note, Michonne, she comes in, she sneaks in, and she dodges a CRM soldier by, I'm assuming she like climbed up the tree and she kind of jumped down to get away from him. But after Rick meets with Thorne, he then meets with Beale. And they're out in the woods by the fence line, and he's killing what they call delts or walkers. And he says to Rick that, we're the dead ones. He talks about, the scientists haven't, figured it all out. And then he talks about the sword, this whole thing about the sword, killing with the sword, and then it being the sword will bring life, and it sounded like a whole bunch of BS. It's somewhat like Rick, and he'll say it to Beale about how his father says you got to burn things down for it to grow back and give it life. But so yeah, the sword that kills is the sword that gives life. Ashley, when he talks about bringing Rick in, because he said when he's going before an operation, he likes basically solitude. And he's impressed by Rick. And so he's like, he's going to bring him in as well. And that maybe even, Rick can shoulder some of that weight the weight of the responsibility of what he has decided to do, as well. That whole little interaction. What did you get? What did you think of Beal? Were you like buying anything he was saying? Did it make sense? What did you think?
I think, I mean, to a certain extent, yes, it made sense for the situation he's in. And I think it made sense that Rick coming back after he was basically free is what made Beal trust him. I think that absolutely makes sense. But he did a whole lot of talking in this episode. And I was just like, my God, get to the point. Because he didn't have a big point. Like he just kept kind of saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm like, we get it, we got it. You trust Rick. Everybody else needs to die. We got it. So I feel the same way about this. It feeds into the later scene, which is just like, Terry O'Quinn is great. We probably could have cut down a lot of this dialogue. Maybe had a longer reunion. I don't know.
When he talked about solitude, it reminded me of a lecture that was given to a West Point plebe class. So it's like the incoming like freshman class.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened around like 2009. And it's about solitude and leadership. And it talks about to be a good leader, you have to be able to sit alone with your thoughts. Like how solitude is very important for leadership. And it reminded me of that lecture. And I used to read it like once a year. I would read this thing, and it's online, and I'll post like a link to it, but just random, that it just made me think of that. Then Imani, we see Michonne, and she goes into Jadis's room, and she's a little frantic at first because she can't find this, this paper, this dossier that's going to expose them. And then she finally does. Talk about that scene and your feelings about her when she finally found it, and the cat, and the CRM walker catches her.
I thought, first of all, it was more than frantic, and I was a little, now maybe I just misunderstood, but I felt kind of like, you have time to be in here and just like methodically move through the place. Nobody knows that you're here. Only person who knows that you're here is Rick. And they hadn't come up with this plan to destroy everything yet. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of like the franticness threw me off a little bit. And then it grew to more than frantic. Like I actually thought she was like starting to have a little bit of a panic attack when she really thought she wasn't gonna be able to find it. Mm-hmm. And and I thought it was ironic. I was like, what is Jadis doing when she put it in this cat? Like knowing, because Jadis is, I think, somewhat aware of the whole cat thing. Not all of it, but I think she knows that he gave Michonne that junkyard cat. So I was like, was that some piece of like little irony, like find a little fuck you from Jadis to put their information in another little cat. But like I said, I think that it was the franticness that made her, I wouldn't say, I mean, it was a completely honest accident to like the way that she was like positioned by the door, and then the thing came under and it stopped. But I don't know, it felt like it spoke to the sort of inexact way that she was like going about everything. Like she was just like a rushing. And so she like missed that, again, easily missed thing. But and then of course then she had to kill the woman who came in, who had keys, and I was like, that's weird. Why would you have keys to Jadis's door? Like if you think that she's in there, you're gonna let yourself in? Like I was like, you'd knock again. Plus she could have easily just had something against the door. It was just a weird thing. I thought that was just but I mean, it doesn't take away from the scene. It was very what do you call it? What do you call it? Cathartic for her to find it. And I stopped. I froze the frames to like read some of it. It was actually very complimentary stuff that she was saying. But now, Rick was a gifted leader, and he was like an excellent tactician, and his wife was just as dangerous as he was, and da 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 da. I mean, clearly she held them in high esteem, but she was like, and this is why they have to go. This is why they have to die. But I was like, interesting. Like, she has full faith in them. And like she
Well,
said,
she said a million times they can do anything. And I'm very surprised there were not any pictures of Rick in her room because she's clearly obsessed with him.
One of them looked like a young Martin Luther King Jr. with the hat. It was supposed to be Gabriel.
oh, I didn't, I
The
recognized
one up at the
Gabriel, but I
top.
didn't make the connection.
Why did Kia say that she thought it was supposed to be Tupac?
I know, I did
three of them.
too. I did too. When I first saw it, I was like, is that Tupac? But I was like, no. So that does not make sense. But
There's like at least 3 pictures
of Gabriel, yeah.
Of Gabriel, yeah, there were. And I always feel like her being frantic when you're nervous and time seems like it just totally changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine it feels like, okay, I've only been in here for a minute, but it feels like forever.
Like 20, yeah.
And
I don't know what they're gonna get caught.
Right. And
Yeah.
Ashley, have any thoughts about that scene besides the paintings?
I mean, I like the callback to the cat, like it being in the little sculpture. Felt like Jadis was being a little petty, but it also does represent this somewhat useless history between the 3 of them. Like that moment with the cat, and then Jada's trying to ask for it back, and Rick being like, no. And so, yeah, it being in there felt appropriate, and I'm glad Michonne found it. And I did like like Monty said, the emotional catharsis of like her ripping up her little fan fiction. And Denai was doing a lot in this episode with very little, I thought.
Yeah, because she had to transmit all of that.
Yeah, especially with the mask on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Imani mentioned that the letter that Jadis wrote was very complimentary about Rick and Michonne and their skills. And when Rick is meeting with General Beale, he says he's given this briefing 2,533 times. Way too many, I think, if you're talking about a elite little group. I'm like, that's a lot of people. But he says, and it kind of goes back to Jada said, no one like Rick. And it's like, y'all are you so full of yourself that you think you're going to convince him to fall in line with you? Because the way you're both complimenting him just tells me that you should have just took him out. Particularly if you're so concerned about your mission. But, they did not, and that's why they failed. But, Beale goes on and he talks about all these different things. He talks about how the scientists don't have a cure. He talks about, that in 14 years, things could be over for them. They could all die. That there are herds of like million delts, that they have people embedded in select communities, not only in the United States, but in other countries. I assume that's France is one of those places. They talked about, test subjects. He talks about the fact that the CRM is the one that destroyed Omaha in a campus colony. In 18 hours, they're going to destroy Portland. That they're going to implement martial law. They're going to take over the civil republic, take out the civilian leadership. And he's telling him all this stuff, right? They're going to eliminate the competition, all these other communities that's, in the US, and take their resources and consolidate everything. And he gives a little backstory about himself. He had an alcoholic father. He left at 15 to work at a VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, like, it's not a club, but, it's like a group organization. He went to Vietnam twice. He went to officer training at Fort Benning, which is now called Fort Moore because it's one of the Army bases that they changed the name. Huh?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they changed. Benning is now Fort Moore.
My mom was born around there.
Yeah, and then he took over for Pennsylvania National Guard. He sacrificed Pittsburgh, his hometown, so Philly could survive. So he's telling Rick all this stuff. again, the sword that kills is the sword that, that gives life. He said that, I think, 3 times in this episode.
Mhm.
And that he thinks Rick could be the next leader of the CRM, right? And that how Rick had got away, but he came back. And he says that that's a powerful story, and that Rick is a powerful symbol, that the CRM may need to tell that story in order to win the hearts of people who will see some of their freedoms delayed or taken from them, right? All for the sake of the CRM, saving the world. Which, side note, AMC's Walking Dead Twitter account was live tweeting last night, and they tweeted, Rick's story is powerful, but it's not yours to tell. And I think some people thought they were subtweeting people who were not happy with the season or the episode, but they were not. They were talking about Major General Beale telling Rick's story. They were not shading the fandom who were not happy. Because, I mean, maybe if I were running the Twitter account, you could have took it that way, but I don't think they were shading anyone out there. So that was funny to me today. But that whole conversation, right? Ashley, let's start with you with Beale, and he's telling, Rick giving him that echelon briefing. What were your thoughts about that scene?
I again, he talked a lot. I appreciate that we got this backstory. I think could have been broken up a little bit more, but I like that. I love Andy in this scene. I love that he's not saying anything. He's just reacting and kind of he's responding in some points, but basically he's just listening, watching, looking, which is kind of the same thing the audience is forced to do. And it's really interesting to see the things that they decided to cut in as this scene is playing, like the background of Rick and Michonne and all the things they've been through as Beale is trying to tell what he's been through. And I just love that comparison. Are we moving on to like the knife throwing or just that part?
No, you can go ahead with the whole thing, and then Amani, we're gonna come back around. I want your thoughts on this scene too. But yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
So again, Andy in this scene, when he, I also love how it's intercut with Michonne, but I'm sure we'll get to that. But yeah, I love that they focus on the throat bite, because again, that's one of the best things that's ever happened on television. And that Rick gets to talk about that and why he did that. And that moment where he's just kind of over it, and Beale thinks he's really getting to Rick, and he's like, swear on the sword, and Rick is like holding this knife like, I'm about to kill your ass. It's amazing. I love when Rick gets to be just a little bit feral. And so, when he finishes his spiel, it reminds me a lot of that moment in Breaking Bad between Gus Fring and Hector Salamanca, where where Gus figures out just a little bit too late that we are not on the same side and you're about to die. Like I love the tension of that moment. It's just so good. So, I mean, also shout out to Andy for doing his own stunt across that table. That was amazing. I love their commitment to their characters. So yeah, I love that whole. I will stop there so that Armani can go, because the speech after that is very good too. But yeah.
I really actually don't have much to add. I think that it was a good scene. I think that they that Beale makes a good offer. For a hot second, and this is the moment where I thought, if there was going to be a season 2, this would be it. Like, this decision would dictate whether or not there was a season 2. Did I say scene? I meant season. When he presents him with the sword, and he's like, swear on the sword, and then you get that flashback to Okafor being like, swear on the sword, whatever it is that he says after that.
Hesitate.
And don't let it take, don't hesitate, whatever he said. And so I was having the same feeling that Beale was having at the same moment. Like, I was like, are you gonna do it? You're not supposed to hesitate. Are you hesitating? Oh shit, you're hesitating. Especially since he had taken the knife and he had changed the direction, because at one point he had it like turned away, like he was going to use it sort of like a stabbing implement, like, well, or rather, well, yeah, kind of like a sort of overhand stabbing, and then he switches it and he makes it, or rather, I think it's the reverse. He has it initially like out, like he's gonna like stab him this way, and then I can't remember exactly what Beale says, and then he kind of changes the direction. So I was like, oh, did he change his mind about whether or not he's gonna kill this dude? And then no, he did not. He just changed the weapon he was going to do it with. That's all. He was like, no, I don't think the knife is going to be good enough. I'm going to actually kill you with your own sword. I like the symmetry of it.
Yeah, because in Ashley mentioned, there was a lot of flashbacks, right? We have like, and in this moment, we get the flashback of episode 1 when Beale is talking to Rick and he says, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm just going to look in your eyes, right?
Mhm.
And then we have Okafor saying, you swear on the sword. And then Rick just looks at him and then he sees, it's like a callback to episode 1 where he's looking in his eyes and he sees like, oh, this ain't it,
It
right?
took too long, but yes.
It took forever. But yeah, so he throws the knife. Rick throws the knife. He, as Ashley said, he goes over the desk, like, Dukes of Hazzard style. And, they fight. And I was like, Rick, if you don't beat this old man, a real problem, sir, please. So they're talking and he finally, he kills him. Then we go to Michonne,
Oh,
who
hold on. I want to talk about that part.
what part?
Yeah,
Killing
sure. She
Beale.
wanted to talk about the little.
Them killing Beale.
Go ahead.
So I wanted, because Beale did ask him like who was the person that he lost closest to him. And when he asked that, I said out loud, like he lost himself. When he said Carl, I was like, oh yeah, he did lose him. So when they came back around, I was very proud of my own media literacy. I don't know that he said, I didn't lose him, I lost myself. He brought me back. My wife brought me back. That was amazing. I thought, this is one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. Probably Andy is really electric and like menacing and righteously indignant throughout the whole thing. I just thought it was very good. And I need someone to set that scene to Beyonce's Spaghetti, like right now.
You mean someone? You mean you?
No, not me.
Who else?
Why not?
So anyone out there who know how to do that,
time.
go ahead and do that for Ashley, please. If you know how to do that, she would greatly appreciate it. Yeah, yes. Andy's acting through, all 6 episodes, but even this one too, both he and Denai, it was all in the face. It was all in the eyes. They said so much without saying a word. Like this, it felt like this was a man and a woman of few words, as usual, but even more so in this episode, because it wasn't, everyone else was doing all the talking. Okay, and they were not, because it's like, what is there for us to say? It's just about what we need to do. And so, so while he's getting his briefing, Michonne goes to this briefing where they are very specific about what's about to happen in Portland. And she's getting this briefing and they're talking about how they're going to handle the children. And it was so beyond disturbing and how just matter of fact this is about you being selective about these children, how you're basically going to kill their parents, how you're going to say, you don't tell them it's going to be okay, tell them they're going to be okay. Before we go into this briefing, Michonne picks up, it looked like like a little stuffed bunny.
Yeah.
And that's, call back to, the pilot, and it's like, that's one of the things that they're going to use to comfort these children, right? To give them these bunnies to hold on to, these stuffed animals to hold on to. And I feel like if you didn't before, by the time you heard this, you just did not care about these people dying, right? because what they were about to do and what they seemed to be okay with, because they all knew what was going to happen, right? And they were on board. And so I think she's seeing it for herself too. This could be, and we see the flashbacks to her own kids. You see Carl with her and Carl, and from Clear, you see her hugging Judith and RJ, and she's thinking about her own kids and her own communities. And it more than ever, like, we can't walk away. Yeah, we do have to finish this. What did you guys think about, Imani? I'll start with you. That whole briefing about the kids and what Michonne was going through.
I mean, like you said, I mean, I think it was like completely inhumane and it was sort of horrible. But I mean, I think that it was meant to call back to like other times in history where people have just sort of like without any like compunctions, just like made very ugly choices about people and who was worthy of saving and who was not and stuff like that. And as Ashley was saying, you know, they did a lot of work, both of them, but Denai specifically in this scene where she's still wearing her mask, so she's got to convey all that horror in just her eyes and like how sad she is and how horrified she is and how, you know, she realizes like, no, this can't happen. And I thought it was really well done. And I, like I said, I thought the idea of it was like horrendous. I mean, like, how is that the, you know, 500-year plan?
Right.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Ashley?
Yeah, I think specifically I like that they gave this to Michonne. You know, historically, I think the show has done a lot, or at least fans have sort of latched on to the idea of Carol in children, but this is very much one of Michonne's character traits as well. You know, she took to Carl immediately, largely because of her own son that she lost, and then she was raising, you know, two more children on her own, not to mention saving all of Alexandra's children by herself. So I'm glad that this episode gave Denai that moment. And she said specifically that the last child they showed was one that like was meant to resemble RJ. And I think in light of some of the comments I've seen from the fandom, that's particularly important because some of them are, you know, trying to dismiss RJ as Rick Jr., perhaps because their imaginations are maybe too small to imagine Rick with a black son. I don't know, but he's here and that is his name, and he is a Grimes, and Michonne and Rick are his parents. So I like that they kind of drove that point home by having her react to him, and of course everything that happens at the end. So
yeah. After Rick kills Beale, Major General Beale, he speaks with Thorne, right? And he tells her that Beale went to the woods to think, and that she said, okay, do you want to meet up now? And he says, oh no, he has me doing something else, right? And so after he puts Beale in this container and he gets into the elevator, I don't know what the hell floor they were going to, but it was forever between this slow elevator and Rick continuing to look down several times. I'm like, could you please stop? I mean, because if I'm standing next to somebody and they're looking down, I'm going to look down too. I'm like, what are you looking at? But, you know, so the guy, when the elevator door is open or is about to open, he notices the blood and they fight. And once again, I'm like, oh Lord, he's going to get his butt kicked again. But he eventually gets the upper hand, and then I'm like, are you going to stop beating this man at all? Like, he just went to town. And I love when the elevator opens and Michonne's, first of all, she's like, it's me, like and she is I mean, she does not even acknowledge this blood all over this man's face. And I feel like she's like, I'm used to this. Whatever it was that caused this, it obviously had to be done. As long as he's on the winning side, I don't need to really know anything. He did what he needed to do.
I mean, it would be weirder if his face wasn't covered in blood at this point.
I mean, yes. there's one thing he's gonna do is be covered in blood. But
Yep.
so they have a conversation. And they kind of like give each other, fill in whatever blanks they may have about what's happening, what's going on. And then Rick has a moment and he's like, I think he knows that, okay, we have to do this, but he's still feeling this loss. And there's these feelings of frustration and anger and just guilt and sadness over, he's like, I've been away from my kids. I didn't get to see them grow up and I just want to go. I just want to go back. Ashley, talk about that moment.
Oh, yeah, I love that moment. I think that's what a lot of us have been feeling with Rick being gone all this time is that, and again, this is why I feel like they should have been allowed to be a little bit madder at Jadis and not have like this emotional ending. She took that from them. And they do say that, but it kind of, I feel like it kind of fizzles out at the end of last episode. So I really appreciated him saying that again and just kind of entertaining the idea. Of course, they're not going to let this plan go on, but just, he deserves a chance to be a little bit selfish and just, express that in that moment, even though we know they're not going to take it. So I love that for him.
What about you, Amani?
It just felt like a little bit of a breakthrough because up until now he's never said that. I mean, like Ashley said, he said that he was, angry with Jadis. Like he said to Jadis that he was angry that she had stolen that time, but he still never really expressed an interest in, not an interest, but like very much like I want to go home, which I have to say that was the moment where my like stomach dropped and I was like, oh my God, we're not gonna get the happy ending because usually when people say this on a show, that's like, the other person's like, don't worry, darling, we will get there.
Like,
This is
oh,
this is it. We just have to do it. And we just have to get through this last step.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the person like dies. So when we get to the moment where it looked like he was about to die, I was like, yeah, here it is. Here it is.
Oh,
He
well,
said the magic word. So
no.
okay. Before we get to that moment, right? What is it? Thorne realizes that Rick is up to something when she goes to the woods and she sees that Beale is not there. And then she also sees when she goes to his room, I'm assuming it was his room, Rick's room, that he left his CRM like prosthetic, his hand. Right. So she knew something was up. And then she also at one point has her own flashbacks of Rick asking her to vouch for this person that saved his life. And how she's from episode 3 when she tells him that she risk everything for Dana and for Rick by vouching for them and what have you. And then even that scene where they're playing poker, and I guess we're looking at Rick's poker face, and then Rick telling her like, she's not gone, like, his person's still there. And she realizes like, oh, like they duped me. They got me, right? So while she's going through this, Rick and Michonne are preparing to, they're setting everything up, right? Michonne says she's learning all these skills of how to destroy these gas canisters using the, wiring the grenades from Nat. So they use the two people that Rick killed, the soldier and Beale, and they kind of tie them up and have a string, I guess, or wire going through the grenade pens. So as they walk as walkers, is pulling the pens, right? So they put that whole plan in motion. Rick once again gives Michonne a gift, and it's Beale's sword. And it's like, oh, they're doing well and they're almost about to get away with it. And then Thorne momentarily delays them, right?
that was
Before
a bit of a logical leap, though. I have to say, I'm sorry.
that she knew where to go, where they were.
No, well, not just that, but that Dana was his wife. Like that Dana was. I was like, I mean, it was weird, but the idea that she put all of that together felt a little like, yeah, okay.
I mean, he was staring at her longingly every time they crossed paths.
Yeah, but we already
I feel like she
established
should
that
have
for
figured it out one time.
whatever reason, she didn't catch it. She didn't catch it. We saw that. Like if she had seen something and then now, like she
Mhm.
put two and two together, but she'd never seen any of that. So
Mhm.
I mean, all that she has to go on is that it seems like Rick has a soft spot for this Dana person who is now supposedly dead. So I was just kind of like, I mean, it's not, and this is a nitpick.
Hmm.
Like I was like, you didn't. How did you come to that,
Mhm.
Sherlock Holmes?
Well, no, it's not quite Sherlock because there. Anyway, I do feel like this kind of is where the seam started to show on the episode for me. I did not think that was a leap, but just Thorne's involvement in general, and again, everything, not everything. This part with the CRM just started to just feel like, all right, we have 10 minutes left. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, she's a little too late, and to stop them, um, the grenades go off, the canisters explode, the gas goes out, because Rick and Michonne, I think Michonne had, you know, cut like a tarp or whatever. The water helped save them, and so all these CRM soldiers are dead. Thorne fights Rick and then Michonne. Um, when Thorne and Michonne fought, and she said, Michonne had her moments where she was like, "What was it? Love doesn't die."
Yeah,
Mhm.
something
Something
like
like
that.
that. Something like that. She said a couple of times. There was a there. Here's my nitpick moment. Because at one point she'd asked Thorne where Rick was, and she was like, "Behind you." And she's like, "Love doesn't die, love doesn't die." And she stabs her with the sword, and then she's just standing there, and she's like, "Love doesn't die," and she's looking at her, and I'm like, "Turn around." Please. This man that you're looking for is like fighting for his life. And I'm sure at that moment he was like, man, I wish I would have kept my little CRM prosthetic. That would come in handy right about now. Cause I don't know why he had, I mean, symbolism of leaving it behind.
Symbolism, yeah,
I
but
get it, but could you,
practically, yeah, no, you could have used
I
that too
mean, wait until you were like,
on the helicopter.
something. Yeah, throw it out the helicopter or something. But
Plus, why would you give her that kind of? I mean, even even though I think it would have been a logical leap to think to put all of those pieces together, coming into whatever space he was in, I guess it was Beale's office, and
mhm,
seeing the prosthesis there definitely says to me, I have rejected Beale's offer. Like that's
mhm,
so at least that part of it, I do understand that she was like, Rick is up to something, right? Like he directed me to the wrong place. Beale is not out there where he told me he is. And now I come into this spot and his prosthesis is there. Is he on the run again? Like what's going on? And I could understand like when if she had come and found him and then saw, oh, Dana's still alive, and then put it together that, oh, y'all, oh, okay, y'all played me. Okay, got it. But the fact that she kind of put it together before that was kind of like, and I understand symbolically, but son, why are you gonna tip her off? Why would you tip anyone off that you decided to like reject them in this moment? That's strategically unsound from a skillful tactician.
And also, just practically speaking, you have one hand and you're leaving to go out in the world.
Exactly,
Like,
where you might encounter some walkers with just
especially considering you're about to blow a bunch of them up. I'm still not clear what the original plan was because they're talking about like this will be the last time we're separated. And where were they going before Beale stopped them? Were they separating for some time or literally just separating physically? I was confused about what their plan was supposed to be.
yeah, no, I didn't get a good handle on what their plan was other than, the initial part, like you go into the room, get the, dossier or whatever,
Yeah. And obviously they plan to blow up the summit. I just was unclear of like why they were separating, I guess.
Did you get that? You got that they had already planned to blow up the summit? I thought that was a plan that they made like an ad hoc plan that they just made right then. Like they were
No,
like,
yeah, no, okay, yes. I mean, when they were talking, when Rick was like, we could just go home, they were acting like they were delaying going home for some time. And
hmm,
I'm just not sure, like whatever they were planning from, Nat's fire abilities, it seemed like it was basically happening as planned, except Thorn thwarted them a little bit. I just don't know why they would be separating for any amount of
Oh,
time.
they said that after, when did they say that?
When
In
they were in
present,
the tent, right?
in present time when they were,
Yeah.
okay, I missed.
oh,
Because I
Did I make
remember,
that up? Maybe they didn't. Don't let me
well, I
lie.
remember during a flashback or whatever, when they were in bed together,
mhm.
and he said something about like them being separated or whatever, you keep going. And then
Right.
I'll get to you when I can.
Right.
And that was prior to them getting there when she was going to go look for the dossier and he was going to do whatever he had to do. But yeah, I remember that part, but I'm not sure about that. I'll have to go back and look again about the
Now I'm
when
not sure either
when
because
they were
I
in the
thought they
tent.
said this will be the last time we're separated, either in the tent or in the room when they were setting up.
Oh, okay, I'll have to go back and look.
Now I'm
Mm.
wondering.
But yeah, so they Thorn, she stabs Thorn. Here's the part I don't get. Okay. Thorn says Okafor was right. Let's hope Beale was wrong. Like the stabbing made you like change your mind just like that. Like what made her change her mind so that like her dying thing was because you just said that, let go of Okafor's bullshit. Like he was wrong. That's why he's dead. He's not here. It's the two of us. We survived. And then now it's Okafor was right. What happened other than Rick double crossing you and Michonne stabbing you
I
makes
mean,
her feel that Okafor is right. Let's hope Beale is wrong.
it doesn't really actually make any sense because not only that, but she just died for the cause, like just that second. Like she
Yeah,
was
because
dying
she was
for
still
the cause.
fighting them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like
I'm
two
like,
seconds before that, she was like, "Love doesn't exist in a dead world." So
so
maybe stabbing just gives you some
clarity.
safety. I don't know.
Facing your mortality gives you a little clarity. It's like I'm
Yeah,
about
they
Okay.
to
were right all along.
I'm about to meet Okafor, so I gotta.
Yeah,
And
so if y'all know,
also just
drop that in the comments. Like what made her change her mind? Because
But also, we just hoping that Bill was wrong because that 14 years thing seems very concerning to me.
It seemed backed by science. I mean, we already know from World Beyond that they actually had scientists working on it. So if the scientific projections were that this is what was going to happen, I was kind of like, okay, well, what's the plan? I'm not saying we have to see the plan in motion or anything,
Oh, but
but I just want to know that there
let's not
is some
hand
sort of
wave it
plan.
with hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, some people said it was just a fear tactic just to get Rick on board. And I'm like, yeah,
No,
maybe. I hope so, because otherwise we should be worried.
I don't think
yeah,
so.
okay, yeah. So it's time to get away because you've got all these walkers now, and they get up on this like container. Rick is struggling. Oh, before that, Michonne had a moment where maybe Rick, after he pulls the pin on that grenade. Did she drop the sword? I thought she dropped the sword
Yeah.
again. Like, we're
Yeah.
still doing
She
this,
did, it was the
ma'am. But
exact same
okay.
thing.
So, but he made it. He's alive. He barely got up on that container because that's what we have one
We
hand.
have one hand.
I'm very
Exactly.
impressed because, I got two hands and can do that. So
Plus,
Look,
I was kind of like, how is it that the walkers weren't biting your like ankles and calves and stuff? But
they were grabbing on, and it's like we're at this point we're just very thankful he was fully decked out in his CRM gear between all those walkers that he was fighting before he blew them up, and then when he was crawling to get up, climbing to get up on the container. But yeah, it was a close call, but they made it up there. And then we have a voiceover of a journalist telling us everything, wrapping it up for us that CRM's, frontline, they were found out, they were all killed. There's going to be civilian oversight now. They're going to reverse all these things. The community is going to have the free movement. They can come in. People will be greeted as they come in. People are allowed to leave if they want. And then we see helicopter land.
Wait. But
Go
they make
ahead.
a point of saying that the infantry wasn't aware that don't worry, everybody. There's still all these CRM soldiers, but they were not aware. This is only a plot from by the leadership. It was not a rank and file plot.
Yes, I don't know who out there believes that, but okay.
Yada yada yada.
Yeah, no. But that's a conversation that we're gonna have in a minute, and also probably next week as well. But yeah, everything got wrapped up. All the bad CRM guys are gone. And then yeah. So I don't know where they landed. I guess somewhere outside of, I don't know where they are. Are they outside of the Commonwealth? Are they outside of Alexandria? I don't know where they are. But they land and we see the babies running towards their family, their parents, and they stop and they give a hug to Michonne. That seems to last forever. And Rick is back there, and I love Andy the way he just played this, and he's it's been so long and he's unsure, he's nervous. He's like, how are they gonna respond to me? Like they have conversations in the military, and people have been deployed about, they tell family how you're supposed to engage. And then sometimes it's difficult, especially when there were babies and you've been gone for so long and they don't recognize you. And sometimes there's that painful thing. I remember this one like female soldier talking about how her baby didn't come running to her and how hurt it was. But she understood it, but it still hurt. And I just thought about the last time Rick saw Judith, and she was a little toddler. And to imagine seeing this like young woman, basically, and here she is, and I was just like, wow, what is going through your head to see your daughter after all this time, and then to see the son that you've never met. And he's just, the way Andy played it, where it's just kind of like awkward, and he's shifting and he's nervous, and he's, he's looking to Michonne for maybe a little guidance and how to go about this. Ashley, just
she's like, no, don't come to me first. I was like, I did think to myself,
I want to hold up.
Get ready.
No, hold up. You two, no, I'm not even talking to you. Do y'all see how they work me when I try to go to somebody? It's not Amani's like, I you know what, I missed it this time. Usually I catch Ashley and I know to just go to Amani. I missed it this time. I missed it, but Imani, talk about the family reunion.
Give Ashley a chance to gather herself. Like, come on.
I mean, that did it, but go ahead.
I'm not gonna give it the poignancy that Ashley will probably, but yeah, I mean, it was incredibly moving. I think they played it exactly the way it is. Like, they're hugging on Michonne for a long time because, I mean, of course, this is the mother that, I'm sure they were afraid might not come back and everything. So, they're hanging on her. Plus, she's the person that they know. And then here's this guy in the background who Judith has already said she doesn't really remember what he even looked like. But she knows this is him, right? And I'm sure some of it must have come back, like when she saw his face, like a little bit of it. She was small, but she wasn't super, super small. And so like some of it probably came back, and same as you, like, oh my God, to think he missed all that time, like from her, like as a baby to now, like a young woman. And, he hugs her, and I'm sure he can't believe what that he's back with her, back with them, everything. So that was like incredibly moving. And that I have to be honest, I was very trepidatious about how they were going to play RJ and his, you know, first, because I was like, I please don't make this corny. Like, please don't make it like RJ just runs into his arms. It's like, I don't know who you are, dude. So, but they played it just right. Like, you know, like Rick is trepidatious. RJ is kind of like, are you the dude that they've all been talking about all this time? Like, oh, you know. And then that RJ says the thing that really like kind of like opens him up. Like, you know, I was, you know, what was it? Like, I was waiting for you. I believed you.
I knew you'd be
Yeah,
back or
like,
something.
yeah, something like that. And I was just like, oh, that's so sweet, you know, and the faith, you know. And then and before that, Judith was like, oh, you know, you got him. And she was like, well, I promised that I would. I was like,
You
killing
told me
me.
to. She told her, you
Yeah, yeah,
told
you
me
told
to.
me to. Yeah, yeah. And I was like, you're killing me. So so I think that scene was just beautifully, beautifully done. It had encompassed all the range of emotions and all the awkwardness. It wasn't, you know, like I said, it wasn't played in a like super like what do you call it? I hate to say it this way, but like sappy. Like it was true. It felt true to how that situation would come out, you know, like play out. And so I really appreciated it. It was everything that I wanted. Oh, except for those dirty, dirty, dirty.
Yeah. Sometimes we ain't gotta have a callback.
Exactly. Those dirty,
Disagree.
dirty boots that he had to
Those
put
boots
on
are
his
Rick
feet that
Grimes.
should have actually fallen apart as he stepped off. They like literally like split and fallen apart after all that, like disintegrated.
I love
That's
the boots.
so so
They are
horrible.
quintessential Rick Grimes. But the problem was, I would like to, honestly, Ewan did a great job for like 5.8 episodes, but that vest and that shirt is like the worst thing I've ever seen. I don't know why you would give me that image after like seriously, 5 episodes of Heat. The black CRM
I
uniform is
mean, yeah.
amazing. And
We've
then you
established
give me
black is his
this.
color.
It is. But he works the denim. I mean, so many shirts have worked. And you leave me with this image of Rick Grimes. I did not.
Blue.
But clearly, because he'd worn that flannel nonsense when he came into town too before, so
Sure.
that
Yeah.
is
But
that's
not the
his
vest. The vest. Where did that come from?
I don't, but it's some of his personal style. We just have to understand that
He has no
he's
style.
not, yeah,
Right.
that he
He's
doesn't have
No
it.
style.
not. I mean,
Michonne, work on that.
please give him back his blue shirt, his denim shirt.
Because those palazzo pants that she was wearing, I was like, mwah, mwah. Look at, oh my
Yeah,
God.
she looked, I didn't like the shoes, but yeah, she looked good.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And that I don't did not anyway.
Ashley,
Are you ready?
are you together now?
I was, and now I'm thinking about Rick wringing his hands on the damn helicopter. My eyes are getting wet again. It was so good. It was amazing. I mean, okay. Ooh, yes. First of all, I just talked to you about Ewan, but her dressing RJ like Carl was, oh my gosh, that really hit me hard in the feels. When he said when he said you're the brave man, and then he said, but you can call me dad. I just kind of fell out. I was just like, this is everything I want. So I it was perfect, but more than that, you know, these are you really it was a little bit sappy, but in a very good way. And these are the kinds of endings that are usually what white people get. And so just to see Michonne, I'm really trying hard not to cry. To see Michonne wrapped up in her family with the like swelling music, it really moved me. Um, shit, I'm really about to cry. I've loved Michonne since like 2013, like from the moment she stepped on the scene at the end of season 2. I was like, I don't know if she's black, but she seems black, and I love her. So you know, to watch her over the past 10 years come alive and experience life at the end of the world, and she's literally the reason I decided to write fiction and like just have a desire to create worlds where Black women get their happy endings. This ending just moved me, not just to tears, but just like life, especially I've had the worst month in the show. It's really helped me get through it. So I loved it.
Yeah. So we just kind of talk about the ending of this. We're not going to talk about the whole series, but this is what this was always supposed to be, right? It was an epic love story.
Yes.
Love story cannot end tragically. This is not, you guys know better than anybody, you write romance. So we know romance is happily ever after, the HEA, right? And for her to get this, like Ashley said, it doesn't happen often. We can go through television and see all the different shows where Black female characters were just, I think of Nicole Bahari in Sleepy Hollow. In Taraji P. Henson in Person of Interest. It goes on and on and on. And so to see, Michonne get to have a happily ever after with her family, with her husband, with her kids, is everything. That is all I've wanted. Like, this is what this show is about. And I think some people did get a little confused. This was not The Walking Dead, like, extra episode, part 2 of the finale or something. No, this was about
Season
Rick
12.
and Michonne's
Mhm.
love story. It
Mhm.
was always about Rick and Michonne, and we'll talk about it next week. But this wasn't about other people. And the way they kept this show centered on these two people and their love for each other and what they were willing to do for each other was everything I wanted. Again, we'll talk about it next week, but I think the three of us like this show more than some people realize.
Yes.
Clearly.
But I will say about episode 6, and we said it a little bit, there are people who are upset about the CRM angle and felt that it was rushed and that it didn't, it kind of, the air kind of went out of the sails. And I understand that. Now, selfishly, like, oh, Michonne and Rick back together, like, I'm good. So emotionally, perfect. But we open it up and we start talking about other things story-wise, I can see why those people are a little disappointed. And it was an analogy I gave was that if I go to a steakhouse and I order a dinner, I order a steak dinner, the steak is the star of the show, right? It's all about the steak, right? And so for us, that's Rick and Michonne. And the steak is perfect, right? It's like, oh, because the steak is perfect and because the steak is the star of the show, then I should be okay with an undercooked baked potato and a wilted salad. Like, no, I still want the other stuff to be good too.
Yeah.
Right. So, and maybe they are a victim of their own great imaginations because they did a hell of a job of building up CRM to the point where it made people want to know about them. And I don't think that story is over. If we're going to have a Walking Dead universe, I can foresee CRM still being something to deal with in whatever stories may happen in the future, because Beale did say that they had people embedded in other communities. So I feel like those people are believers. They believe in his mission. So are they just gonna like lay down their weapons and say, okay? Probably not. So I think it's easy to pick up the CRM story again, but I definitely understood why people felt like this episode didn't give them everything they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a valid critique.
Yeah.
And we didn't deal with the 14 years, which I don't believe was a lie.
So why is it, because that's an interesting thing that the 14 years, what specifically was he talking about the 14 years? Even the way he talked about the way these like walkers are kind of evolving, or who knows what they're turning into and what they could unleash on us. Like, we just don't know. And the herds of dead that are still out there. so yeah, they definitely set up a lot of stuff in this 6th episode that they could do a lot of things with. And that just left me with more questions.
Well, I mean, they set it up in World Beyond at the end, and in Daryl Dixon, like the walkers are evolving. They are different. They've got fast walkers, they've got like these fire acid like blood walkers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Got smarter walkers that can like climb and stuff and like open doors like Jenny did back in the day. So
Well,
they're
even in, I'm sorry, like episode 11, we saw, was it maybe, I mean, episode 11, was it season 11? I'm not sure. But when they had climbed and the
yeah.
walker climbed, and that was some of the scariest. I hadn't been that like, whoa, in a long time with The Walking Dead. And I was like, that's freaky, that's scary. Like, I would be dead quick. Like, I can't do fast walkers and these thinking walkers. Like, no, that's I'm gonna
But
have
that's
to
it.
opt out.
He said not only it wasn't even just that, it was the disease that they are, the potential for disease carrying, like not just the walker thing that we all are already infected with, but which makes sense. Like, I mean, they're dead bodies, like there's all sorts of disease. That's why we have to bury them or cremate them
Yeah.
quickly in real life. Is because they're a disease vector. So it's like, between just the fact that they outnumber the living, then they are evolving, plus they are a contagion. I don't believe that the 14 years was like just a ploy to get Rick on side. I think he was being honest. I think they did do projections, and they
Mhm.
said, and they looked at it and they were like, if we can't figure something out, this is how long we have. And I think that introducing that definitely laid the groundwork for more. And I'm just, curious.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts? We can wrap up this episode.
Is Michonne gonna get her katana back? Because that epee
You see it, right?
It wasn't on her back. I thought it was on her back.
That's that little epee
That was
that
the
got
sword.
her. Yeah. That's not.
What?
Oh, I just thought that was the katana. I missed that.
Oh,
Oh,
maybe
Well,
it
then,
is.
I
but
don't know. I mean,
that's
I just
weird
thought it
because
was the sword he gave her.
I just assumed it was the katana. I don't know. I don't know.
I hope it is.
I mean, I felt like it was kind of clear that they gotten back to Philly, and that's probably where they got all the clothes and stuff, and they were coming with supplies and everything for Alexandria
Yeah.
or Commonwealth or
That
wherever.
was a lot of supplies for Alexandria.
I mean, they're
I
the
think they
ones
are at Alexandria. I don't.
Yeah, I thought so
behind the
too.
scenes, they kind of implied that.
Okay.
So
But
Um,
they maybe because they're the ones who revealed all this stuff, like they were like, well, you
I
owe
thought
us.
you were gonna say
Like,
one to live.
we can also talk about how,
Maybe
remember
so.
they had the preview before before the show started, and they were Andy and Denai were walking through the old,
Yeah.
Alexandria set. And Andy always gets, you know, ragged on for like being loose lips Lincoln. But Denai said, when she was talking about Kaylee, she said, oh, that like she's outgrowing her little baby katana, right? And it's like, he's never worked with Kaylee. She's saying this to
Uh,
Andy. Like, how would he know? He's never
right. Mhm.
he's never worked with her. So how does he know she's outgrown her baby katana?
well, I mean, she's a vault, but every once in a while you gotta slip.
Hey, yeah, you still slip every now
Yes,
and
I
then.
mean, like, remember with the whole "I love you" thing? If she
Yeah.
hadn't reacted, we wouldn't have known
Yeah.
it was a spoiler. So she does
Oh,
slip up
God.
sometimes.
Oh, God. Okay. So yeah, next week, we're gonna have this postmortem episode where we're just gonna talk about the series, all 6 episodes. We're gonna rank the 6 episodes from our, starting with our favorite. We're gonna talk about the things that we enjoyed the most, the things we wish we would have seen, what this means for the Walking Dead universe from here. Who knows what information we'll find out between now and when we record this postmortem, this wrap-up episode. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and share this episode. Let us know, what did you think of episode 6? Why did Thorne have a change of mind at the end? And would you be interested in learning more about the CRM and what's in store for the world? See you next week.